Hello and welcome to another edition of Make and Do with June. Today I'm going to be working on backgrounds. I'm going to be using PanPastels, these makeup brushes, and a stencil that I cut from my Cricut machine. So the two colors that I'm working with are Chromium Oxide Green and Bright Yellow Green Shade. Now these sponges come with the PanPastels, but I'm not going to use them today. I just wanted to show you that they are an option. I made this stencil using my Cricut machine and one of the free designs that come on the Cricut design space. So what I'm doing is I'm going to dip the brush into the PanPastel, which is a lot like makeup and why makeup brushes are used to apply it. I'm just lightly brushing the color around in the open spaces, and then I'm going to blend in the darker color a little bit later. You don't have to worry about getting it on any of the other part of the drawing because it is erasable. So I'm just brushing it around, getting different tones of that green and rubbing it in so that it's set into the paper. And now I'm going to test this darker green. Always test your colors out and dab them off because some of them have a tendency to pick up a little bit more. So this green, when I first dabbed it off onto the stencil, left a lot of powder on the stencil, but I was able to go back and pick it up and move it around into the open spaces. Mixing these two colors gives that kind of seaweed look a little bit of dimension. So don't be afraid to mix colors. You might want to practice on another sheet of paper before you actually use it on a coloring page that you don't want to mess up. I always do my backgrounds first. It's kind of a game changer if you think about it. When I used to do coloring pages, well, I should say when I first started doing coloring pages, I would always be excited about the picture and color the picture, and then I would not finish it because I was worried about messing up the background. So now I do the background first, and it just really makes it more fun. It makes it easier. It gives you a base for the rest of your picture. And I don't always plan out my colors. And so when I do the background, it often dictates what I'm going to use to color the rest of the picture. So what I did is when I lifted up the stencil on the other side, I immediately wiped it off. You don't want any of the residue on the other side of the stencil and then turn it over onto the page and rub it in, because then you're going to end up with a background that is filled in with whatever color you're using on the stencil or used on the other side, if that makes sense. So always wipe off both sides just in case. And then when you're done, make sure that you clean your stencil off. I have used this stencil with many different colors and have found that if I don't clean it off, I'll remember it when I go to use it again because some of that color will show up on whatever I'm working on. So you'll see that some of the green through the stencil transferred onto the parrot fish. So I'm just going to use a white eraser and clean it up a bit. And this is kind of like magic. You just go over it and boom, it's gone. Pretty cool. So I'm just going to go around and clean it up a little bit. And you can see that that PanPastel comes up very nicely. There are a few colors that I've had issues with. One is a gray, and for some reason, every time I use it, it just does not want to pick up. And I'm not too sure why that is, but it could be just the different pigments used in that Now that I've gotten it cleaned up, I want to add a little bit of blue to the background to indicate water, since it is a parrot fish. And I have a brush that I use for my blues, and I just cleaned it off a little bit and tested this color. Now I like the way that the color looked on the paper towel, and as soon as I tried it on the paper, it barely showed up at all. So after a few minutes, I decided that I was not going to do the entire picture that light blue and then have to go back over it again. So I tried another color, which is Phthalo Blue Shade, and it is dark, so you need to be careful and tap it off before you put it on. But once you wipe it off, just rub it around lightly, and again, don't worry about getting it on the drawing itself because it does erase. So I'm just going to go over it, and I sped it up a little bit here so that you can see what I do, but it doesn't take all day to watch. And I do go over the green, just blending in a little bit of the blue. And it doesn't wipe the green off, it just adds to it. And then I wanted to try to add a little bit of a vignette, and I forgot to dab off my brush, and you can see where it left a nice big blue blob, but I can end up blending that in a little bit later. There's always ways to fix it. The only thing is, if you're going over something that you've already colored and you want to go back in and erase, it will erase everything. So if I had wanted to go in and erase that blue that I put on there, it would take off all the green and I'd have to start over, which you could do if it's really bad. But in this case, I was fine with it. But always remember, just make sure that you dab some of the pan pastel off before you put it on the paper. And how much you fill it in, of course, is entirely up to you. I just was trying to hit all the background places, and then I'll go back in and erase on the parts that I want to color differently. So this parrot fish is eating coral cookies. So I don't want the coral cookies blue. So once I get done with this phthalo blue, I will go in and erase the coral cookies and then fill them in with the color that I want. I use several different kinds of white erasers. I prefer the kind that are on the end of a pencil just because they're small and I can get into the smaller spaces. But this big one is kind of nice if I'm picking up a lot, covering a bigger area. And I'll switch back and forth between the two. So now I'm going to clean off the bubbles, and you'll notice that I kind of took off a little bit too much. So I went over it with what was on the green brush and then decided that it wasn't covering enough for me. So I used that little tiny makeup brush. That's like an eyeshadow brush, and they come with those. The PanPastels come with those as well. But you can use regular makeup brushes if you have one that was in a set of makeup that you got and you ended up not using. I've tried using real brushes that are for makeup, like the kind that look like a paintbrush, and those don't work as well. These have little foam tips on them, and they work great. They pick up the pan pastel really nicely and apply it just as well, too. And you can get into the detail spots. So I just did a little touch up, and there it is. I hope you enjoyed watching this video and that you have liked it and subscribed to it, and let me know what you want to see. Watch for the colored part next. Thanks.